What was the biggest culture shock and challenges when you moved to the Netherlands?
Really, it doesn't necessarily have to do with the Dutch culture. It was just finding you change as a person.
Yeah,
You don't even realize what you might like, and that's the beauty of it when you move abroad. And the more
yeah.
you can like be open to that and try things, the
Hmm.
more you might figure out you really like, which is awesome. So Erin Meyer says that Americans are the lowest context culture in the world. We prioritize clarity and we don't read between the lines. We don't pick up
Yes.
on body language as much. We are all about what we say and what we write on paper.
This is the podcast Mudança e Adaptação aos Estados Unidos. And as you can tell, this is going to be a little bit different of an episode as I'm talking in English, not in Portuguese. It's going to be the first time I'm recording this podcast in English. It is for a special purpose because I'm talking with Taylor. Taylor is a very good friend of mine from work, and she's American. She's American, but she lives in the Netherlands. And she was the one who introduced me to a great book which talks about the culture, the differences in culture in Brazil versus America, and how this can help you understanding as you're coming to the USA. So, Taylor, welcome to my podcast, and thank you for accepting my invite.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk with you.
Great, great. Taylor, how did we meet? Do you remember? What do you remember about the first time we met?
um, yes, so I remember we met at work.
Mhm.
We were in Tampa, Florida at the time. I remember thinking that you looked like a kind, very considerate person. Like you just. I think the first time I saw you, you were smiling about something. That is what I would guess. What I remember, and I remember thinking that I would enjoy working with you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's so thoughtful. That's nice. I feel I had the same impression from you. Like I remember we were working in a room full of people. It was an event here in Tampa. Everybody from many places in the world, they would come and meet and have like 3 weeks of work together. And so many people that I never met before. And I remember you coming to the room. I don't remember who you were with, but talking about something, and I had the same impression, the first impression about you. Taylor, please introduce a little bit more about yourself. Tell us about your background, where you're from, your career, and how did you end up living in the Netherlands?
Yeah, sure. My name is Taylor Toby. I am 31 years old. I say that because it's very common here in the Netherlands when you introduce yourself to also say your age, but it is not as common to do that in America.
Not as
So,
common in Brazil as well.
yeah. But now your listeners know how old I am. I guess I've changed to the Dutch culture. Um, but I grew up in a really small town, farm town in New York, upstate New York. Um, I have two younger sisters, so I'm the oldest of three. I am an accounting nerd, so I majored in accounting, went to school at a university in New York, and then got my first job down in New York City, and moved down there and lived there for 6 years. Worked as an auditor. So going from small town farm town America to the Big Apple was crazy to me, and I remember feeling like it was like I was afraid, scared of that city. People know, New York City. Everyone in the world knows New York City, but New York City is not really America. It's its own world, and it's in and of itself, in my
Mhm.
view. So that was my first taste of culture, really, from what I had known growing up. So I did that for 6 years, and then in 2021 decided that I needed a change from being an auditor. So I transferred into a different department at the same company, and became an advisor, an accounting advisor, but also moved over to Amsterdam at the same time. And I have been here ever since. So it will be 4 years in September, since moving to the Netherlands, and I love it. to be honest. I love it. We'll probably talk more about it, but it's been a culture shock in many ways. It's been refreshing in many ways. There's good things, there's bad things, but uh, but it's been just an amazing experience. So
Do you feel that after 4 years, you're planting like roots in the Netherlands? Like what I mean is, I don't know if it's the term that we use in English, but when I say planting roots, it's like I'm getting more and more used to where I'm living, and it feels a lot like home, and I don't want to like it feels hard to move somewhere else. You know what I mean? Is that how you feel today in the Netherlands?
yeah, I often say to people that I wish that I could combine my two worlds, my family who lives back in America in New York,
Hmm.
most of them, and my world here, which is now my life and a lifestyle that I love. And if I could just take those two and bring them together, that would be it. That's all I would need in life. So it feels like home. I moved here not knowing one person, so I really started from nothing, and it took a while to really feel like this was my home. But
Hmm.
now I love it, and now, if anything, when I go back to America, I feel culture shock. I feel reverse culture shock.
Right, right. What was the biggest culture shock when you in challenges when you moved to the Netherlands?
Yeah, I so the first one of the first memories I have probably of culture shock was when I walked into a grocery store um, in the Netherlands when all the food isn't Dutch, and so I don't know Dutch. But it was such a weird experience because you walk in and of course there's food that you know what it is regardless of the name, like apples, bananas, fruits, and vegetables. But then
Right.
a lot of things I don't all of a sudden don't know the Dutch name. But when I was walking through, I remember there was just that Justin Bieber was playing over the loudspeakers. So it's like I had American music playing over the loudspeakers, but I was in this foreign land of groceries. And it was just funny because I was like, well, this is almost like home, but not really. Um, so yeah, I think little things like that were hard. I still don't know the language, so I think sometimes that can be hard. Um,
Hmm.
but really, it doesn't necessarily have to do with the Dutch culture. It was just finding my routine, finding my rhythm,
Right,
and making friends. That was the hardest part about moving abroad.
right, right. Do you think that obviously as you did not learn the language, at least I'm sure you learned some, but I guess your friends there are all like speaking English, right?
Yeah, I would. So it is an easy country to not know the language because
Hmm.
most people, or everyone really in Amsterdam, can speak English. It's just,
Hmm.
it's just the uh, Dutch people at work tend to like to speak in Dutch, and so if anything, but they'll switch to English when a non-Dutch speaker will come into the room.
I
Um,
see.
but but I don't know my long-term plans yet, so I haven't
Hmm.
committed to learning Dutch. So
Right.
that's why I
Okay.
haven't learned.
How would you feel if you went to the Netherlands and not everybody could speak in English? Do you think your experience would be very different or would be similar?
So if I had to learn Dutch potentially,
Yes.
yeah, it would. That I mean, if I had to, if it was easier or if it was harder for me to get
Hmm.
by without learning the language, 100% I would. I know I would have to try to learn it, and that's a
Right.
challenge of it. Huge challenge I think would be to learn
Yeah.
the language.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
a little lucky. Yeah.
I see. Yeah. Why I'm asking is because America, there's so many different languages, right? Especially if you go to big cities. Sometimes if you go like to Miami, you don't hear English. It's basically all Spanish.
Yeah.
And many Brazilians who are moving to the US, some of them their English level is not as good as they want it. And they have this concern, right, about coming to America and not knowing so much about English. And what I've seen in many many immigrants is that, yeah, you'll be fine. I mean, you can go by your day, your routine, and you can buy stuff and you'll learn the basics, right? But one other thing that I see on the other hand is that maybe you're not gonna feel so much like included, like maybe you're gonna feel too much as not belonging, if you don't know the language. Like, for example, if you go to a random place, there's some folks there, they are speaking to each other and they want to include you, but you don't speak the language. It feels like, hey, I'm not part of that, group. So um I always advise, yeah, if you're going to a place where there's that language, of course, learning the language is the best, and the more you can learn, the better for you to feel better, right? But I would say if you go to a country where, yeah, they all speak in English, and you as American, I feel you probably don't have that problem, right? Like if you speak to everybody, everybody can speak in English. That should be all right. In terms of feeling included. Is that how
Mhm.
you feel? Do you feel well, like, with between the Dutch people?
Yeah, I think not knowing the language can make you feel like an outsider very quickly.
Mm,
In those moments at work when I'm around Dutch coworkers who are just speaking Dutch, I feel very much like an outsider.
mm-hmm.
My remedy has been to find other English speaking expats, people working who have moved to the Netherlands who also don't know Dutch.
Right.
And I mean, I think that's but you when you become friends with people who are going through the same thing as you, right? That shared life experience, which I think is
Yeah.
fundamental to anything, that helps. And so I would say most of my friends are either American, Canadian, South African,
Mm-hmm.
French, who also don't speak the language. But it's hard. It's hard. I think that the best solution is to try to learn the language. Immerse yourself in it. I think another thing that's hard is when you move abroad, people who are locals already have their family and friends.
Mm-hmm.
And so the people who are looking to make friends are people like you who have also moved abroad. At least that's
Yeah.
my experience. So thankfully, I've found people who are like me.
Yeah. No,
Who
for
need-
sure. And I'm sure that we do well when we talk, we connect great because we've been through similar things, right? Like, I moved to America, you moved to other country. Like, we know the challenges, we know, like, what we've been through, right? So that definitely is one of the reasons why we connected well. And yeah, I guess coming to a different country, finding your tribe, right? Like finding people who went through the similar experiences, that definitely helps connecting, right?
Yeah.
Understanding each other. That's great. Many of our listeners, they are preparing to move to the USA, right, for the first time. What advice would you give to them, in terms of adjusting to a new culture, in terms of preparing themselves before they move? What would you say to them?
So I'm going to keep this not about America per se yet, because I think
Okay.
we'll get into America. This is just if you're going to move abroad anywhere, what would be my tips? So agnostic to country. Um, I would say first, which everyone hates this, but you got to give it time.
Yeah.
Once you move, or at least once you move. So this is in the okay, you've moved, you're there, you're in this new place. Uh, you just got to realize that things take time. It takes time to make friends, takes time to figure out how a culture works and what what things you enjoy about it, what things you don't. It took me like 18 months probably to feel like I was
Mm,
winning at life again, like or to not feel like I didn't regret the decision. It took me a long time to feel like I had someone to text and say, "Hey, let's go do something." Um,
mhm.
and and so yeah, I would say that's the first thing is just give it time. Um, were you gonna say something?
Really, 18 months.
Yeah,
I was not expecting that.
I know.
So why do you think it took so long for you?
It's a. I think. I mean, uh, I guess to me it just well. not that life was bad before that, but
Mm-hmm.
it took me that long to really feel like I had people who I would call my friends.
I
Because
see.
people, they come in and out of your life, or you meet some people, but you kind of fall out. But I mean, I was starting from scratch as well, so that's
Mm-hmm.
another thing. Maybe if you knew a few people before, or you had someone to kind of show you around,
Mm-hmm.
that would help. But I also didn't really put myself out there in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You know what it also was? It was a little bit COVID. There was a bit of a lockdown. Everyone went back to working from home.
Oh yeah, that definitely played it part the
That pro-
part.
in hindsight, yeah, that probably well, they kept me in my apartment, so I didn't get out much. Um, but it's just about how much you push yourself, to
Mhm.
meet people and to make an effort. Um,
Right, right.
so,
I
but
see.
the other thing I would say, just as a tip to moving abroad, um, is just to be curious, like genuinely curious about this land you're moving to, this
Mhm,
culture, these people, how they do things, because like
mhm.
you you just you don't even know what you might start to enjoy, or
Yeah,
you're about to move to this culture where people do things differently. It could be as simple as how coffee is drank in that country, which
yeah.
was something example for me. Coffee is drank much differently in America than it is in Europe, and I would have never said that I loved cappuccino. I was all about my, big coffees with creamers that Americans love, the flavored creamers. But now I am
Right.
wholeheartedly cappuccino all the way, small quantity. I mean, and it's you change as a person.
Yeah,
You don't even realize what you might like, and that's the beauty of it when you move abroad. And the more
yeah.
you can like be open to that and try things, the more
Mhm.
you might figure out you really like, which is awesome. So,
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm glad you're saying that. You know why? Because I think a lot of Brazilians, maybe not just Brazilians, maybe many people from around the world think that Americans are kind of cold, they're closed. So if we move to the States and we start having, friends, American friends, there are certain things that we shouldn't ask, that we should be like more like, oh, keep it to yourself, don't be so curious about it. But my experience in talking to my friends too, it's the opposite. Like, yes, they are different from Brazilians because Brazilians are more, yeah, they're more open. And like sometimes you meet somebody in the street, and after, for some reason, you're there talking to them for an hour, they're really good friends already, like it's different. And then in America, yeah, it takes a little bit more time, but that doesn't mean, for example, that you shouldn't be curious about what is important to them, what questions you should ask and stuff like that. Because most of the times when I ask things, especially about the way they do things, what they enjoy, and things like that, most of the times they're really happy to share. It's
mm,
kind of the opposite, what I think many Brazilians would expect. Many people in work, yeah, I think they answered a little bit different than what a Brazilian would answer, but they still were very happy to share and kind of make you see and understand why they like those things. Do you think that's fair? Does that make sense? Would that be for all Americans or in general, or do you think that's just like you would be fine to share and others maybe not? What do you think?
yeah. So I think on the surface,
Hmm.
Americans are very friendly people. And for example, when I was in Florida and I walked into the office and there were people at the front desk in the office, they shout out, good morning," like, and they wave, they smile, they make eye contact. Americans
Hmm.
will do that, as opposed to in Europe, the stereotype is the exact opposite. It doesn't really happen. People are a bit more kept to themselves.
Hmm.
You know, um, and so I'm glad that you have had this experience that Americans come across as friendly.
Hmm.
But one of the metaphors that people just use to describe it is this peach culture versus the coconut culture. So the peach culture are cultures that are soft on the outside. So they're friendly,
Mm,
they'll want to get to know you, they're happy, they're smiling on the outside, but the inside is a bit harder. There's a harder
mm,
core, like a peach,
right.
versus the coconut where it's harder on the outside, but then the inside is soft. And so then once you break through, then they get to know you. I think that Americans are more peach culture and that they are
Mm,
soft and friendly on the outside, but sometimes it's surface level. Sometimes it's all small talk. Sometimes
mhm,
it's, oh, yeah, we should get lunch sometime, but then they never follow up for lunch.
right.
And I think that it's a little bit, Americans have a hard time opening up and being vulnerable and being and showing their true personality. I struggled with that when I was young at work in the beginning, and I still struggle with that
Mhm,
because it's also rooted in this idea of keeping work and personal separate, keeping them different from each
mhm.
other. So it's complicated, but I another thing I'll add is if you're in the South part of America, that Southern charm, people tend to be a little even more friendly, a little bit more easygoing, a little more, hey, it's life, let's.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're in, New York City or a bigger city or, up north, people are a little more like, I have, get out of my way. I've got things to do. Let's not lollygag. Let's not socialize. So
Right.
that's my take.
No, it's definitely interesting because it's all about context, right? Like what you have in terms of what you bring with your baggage, like in terms of what how I see other people, and most of the people who are seeing us Brazilians living in Brazil versus checking like the differences Brazilians versus Americans, right? And you like being American went to Europe. It's all about the context and how you see it. It makes a lot of sense what you're saying. Like sometimes, yeah, I feel Americans they would definitely be more peach, right,
Yeah.
rather than coconut. But but I don't know. I don't know. I feel it depends a lot on the time that you of the relationship. I don't know. It's hard to define, right? Because we cannot also say it's always like that because it depends on the people and the family that they grew up and the place in the country is different. People from Minnesota are very different from people in Florida. But yeah, I feel just like a big difference from what we see the stereotype, right? Is that like sometimes, yeah, it feels like they're closed, but as you talk to them, as you have a relationship with them at work, let's say you're working together with them for a month now, like maybe talking every day, yeah, it's fine. They're gonna eventually like open up a little bit more. It's different than Brazilians that after 1 week of work, it's yeah, about their kids and their family, what they like to do. In America, it's a little bit harder to get to that point, but they do, and they are usually happy when you ask them to share about their stuff. One thing I was talking to some friends about it. They lived here in Tampa for 2 years, and we recorded a podcast too. And they were saying that after 2 years here, um, every Monday they talk about football, right? Because football is huge in America, not a thing, still not a thing in Brazil. So Monday during lunch, that was the talk, right? And if we don't enjoy football or being Brazilian, like it's hard to follow. Like we would not understand, right, what they are talking about. But every time I asked them, I said, "Hey, what are you guys talking about? Like, what is this team? Is this team good?" They were so like, "Yeah, let sit here. I'm gonna explain to you." They draw a map. They draw like like they were really solicit to explain to me the things. So I don't know. It's just I just want to make sure I'm sharing a little bit that it's not as hard as I think most people see Americans. And as you go deeper in the relationship, they open up more and they talk more about stuff, and the relationship gets a little bit more strong, I would say, with time. I don't know if it makes sense what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I was I was raised with this core belief that you keep work and personal separate. And
Mm.
which basically just means you don't become good friends with your coworkers because
Yeah.
that gets too complicated. And I mean,
Yeah.
in the context of your boss or someone in a more senior role to you, I would feel uncomfortable. I still would feel uncomfortable being close friends with someone who, is my boss, or the other way around if I'm their boss. So,
Right.
but it just, my dad too, he was always just someone who, he leaves it at the door. He leaves work at the door. His stress,
Mm.
everything. He comes home, it's like two different lives. And
Mm.
that makes it really hard, or that makes American culture different than, let's say, Brazilian culture, where
For
you
sure.
start working with someone, you want to get to know them. You want
For
to
sure.
know who they are. As opposed to American culture, it's more about, are you a good worker? Can I trust you to
Yeah.
get the job done? We're paying you to be here. And so that's
Yeah.
where that coldness, I think, comes off. But what's
Yeah.
interesting,
For sure.
Renato, is when you do ask Americans, like you were saying, when you do take an interest in their lives, I think it's because we're not used to it. I think it's because
Mm.
it's like, wait a second, you actually want to know something about my personal life in a work setting? You're actually asking me this?
Right.
So if you can come across genuine in those conversations, I think Americans will. They will. I mean, not everyone, but
Not everyone. Yeah.
they might be
Yeah.
willing to open up more. So
Yeah. 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 No, for sure. For sure. I had mixed experiences for sure. So people that were more, let's say, used to working with diverse right background, but and others that were more like no, not so experienced, let's say, with diverse people, right? And they were definitely harder to have those
yeah,
conversations that were a little bit more deep than just like small talk.
I I've experienced that a little bit more in the Netherlands, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest. So people are more uh, they're more willing to share who they are and their personal life in a work setting than in America, which has been refreshing. And
Mm-hmm.
it also too makes me feel like if I hang out with someone, a coworker outside of work, and I make a
Mm-hmm.
fool of myself, or I say something embarrassing, or say something that makes me look dumb in my view, here I don't have any. I'm not afraid that that's going to come back to bite me at work
Mm.
here in the Netherlands. But in America,
Right.
you just people want to do a good job at work. They want to prove themselves at work, and if you would like, and that's why we distance ourselves. That's why we don't become close friends, because heaven forbid we do something or say something outside of work, and all of a sudden now this has changed their opinion of you in the workplace. And I just, there's something there. So
Yeah, no, for sure. As you were saying, yeah, a lot of things were coming in my mind, a lot of examples that, yes, it's true. Like, sometimes there is this barrier of don't do certain things at work because of how this can come up later and stuff like that, right? And that's probably ingrained in the American culture in the workplace, something around those lines. Cool. All right, let's go to the next part of our podcast now. Let's talk a little bit about the book. So, you introduced the book to me, not just to me, but the whole group that we worked together, The Culture Map by Erin Meyer. That was a phenomenal book, one of the best that I read, and I wish I had read that before I came to the US, because that gave me so much clarity about what to expect in the workplace, like how to hear certain things, how to react to certain things because they're different, people are different, and it's a lot of obvious things that now it's obvious like that you can see, but those things that are so obvious, but you never thought about it, like you never thought about it that way. So that's how the book feels to me, and it was so good to have those pieces of knowledge and understand all of them. That really changed the way I see the relationships at work, and the way I can I don't know, the things that I teach other people too that are coming here, because it's so valuable in my point of view. Um, so first, thanks for that. Thanks for introducing the book to me, and let's talk a little bit about some of the concepts that Erin talks about in the book, and a little bit. a little bit more biased towards American versus Brazilian because I think that's most of our audience. So Americans, they are considered, for example, low context communicators. What what should that what does that mean? What does that mean like for Brazilians, for example, for us to understand? Like what does that mean when you say that the Americans are more low context communicators?
Yes. So yeah, just quick on the book too. I'm so
Hmm.
glad that you enjoyed it. I also wish I would have read it before I moved to the Netherlands. But I recommend this book for anyone who's going to move to another country, who's already moved to another country or culture,
Hmm.
or just to learn about why your culture does the things that they do, you know. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just I feel like I am 2 steps ahead now when I work with someone from a particular part of the world because I understand these learned behaviors, and it makes you a more aware, wise, just makes you a better person. So glad that you
Yeah.
enjoyed the book. Um, so in the book, yeah, Erin Meyer says that Americans are the lowest context culture in the world. They are the farthest left on the scale, which
Yes.
means, yeah, we prioritize clarity and we don't read between the lines. We don't pick up
Yes.
on body language as much. We are all about what we say and what we write on paper.
Hmm.
Um, I think the way I would describe it and what I've learned is there's a saying in America that you say what you mean and mean what you say. So just that kind of says it all. It should be
Yeah.
very obvious what my intent is by my words.
Yes.
There's also a belief that if a child, a student, is not learning in school, it's not their fault. It's the teacher's fault because the teacher can't communicate, can't get communicate clearly to the student. That's kind of the belief. Teachers get the blame. Um, and then the other thing I'd say that is that when an American hears a joke, we say that's funny. We'll be like, "Oh, that's so funny,"
Oh,
instead
that's
of just
funny.
laughing. Which really
Yeah.
just like we have to put into words what we mean, what we it's
Yes.
that's
Yes.
American. So
I think that's the best example. That's the best example because definitely in Brazil that would sound like sarcastic. Like, what do you mean? That's funny.
yeah.
Are you kidding me? Like, definitely that's the best example. For sure.
Hmm.
And yes, it's so true and it's so obvious, but I needed to read that. I needed to read that in the book to understand and to clearly see that yes, it is exactly like that. And I think simplifying that or without learning that from the book, the way I felt was they're very direct. They're very like sometimes they are even aggressive in a sense. It was like you didn't need to say that, like that's how I felt sometimes. But
Hmm.
then talking to friends that were more experienced here, they were like, no, yeah, they're more direct and don't feel that that's a threat or problem. No, it's just like they are telling you, what they meant, and it's different. It's different, and it's very important for you to know that, like especially if you're listening to us and you're coming from Brazil. That's a little bit of a shock, like when you're talking at work and you hear things that are maybe criticizing something and it feels sometimes like an attack on you or something like that, but it's not. It's just like the way they communicate. Sometimes it is like that, which is funny. I mean, to understand later and see that understanding that makes you feel different about what you're hearing. I think that's the point.
Yeah, I think the a good example of this describing what you're saying
Hmm.
is in the workplace. Americans will more than likely send a follow-up email after a meeting with what was discussed, minutes of the meeting. Here's what we agreed. You agreed to do this. I agreed to do this, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in other cultures, you wouldn't do that. You all agreed in the moment,
Yeah.
because Americans do that, they like to put things in writing, they like to clarify.
Yeah.
The other non-American is going to think, oh, well, they don't trust me to do that. Really? They're
Yeah.
following up with an email? That's annoying. That's disrespectful. They don't trust me, right? And so I think, yeah, for people who haven't worked in an American environment, if they will likely experience that, especially if they work in a corporate office type environment. Don't take it personally, because there is
Yes.
a cultural angle to it. We are more inclined to want to make sure that everyone is on the same page after a meeting.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. For sure. It definitely 10 years in the USA. I got a lot of influence from Americans, and looking at things that I do, why I do those things. A lot is because I've been immersed in this work culture, and learned a lot from American bosses and how to do things, and definitely do a little bit of what Americans do now. Like definitely taking notes and sending to everybody, making sure everybody's on the same page. That's definitely something I do now, and I didn't used to do in Brazil. Something that in Brazil, definitely depending on the setting, it can sound like like why you doing that?
mhm.
Definitely, for sure. Next topic that is very interesting is about feedback. I remember reading in the book that Americans always give like three good reasons, and then they give the, let's say, the real feedback. And that's something, I don't remember if I saw this on the book, but like when I see my kids, for example, and the way they learn at school, a lot of times the things are like that at school, like even like kindergarten, or my other is on second grade. Things are like that, like so definitely coming all the way from the school system, this like feedback system of praising first and then later telling them what to do. um what's your, like, what are your thoughts about it, about like how Americans give feedback?
Um, so I've thought about this a lot. I've talked about this with my mom as well, and just said to her, "Hey, how do you
Right.
give feedback?" To see if she would say what the book says, that Americans start with the good and usually try to give at least three good things, and then
Yeah.
go to a negative piece. You wrap a negative with three positives.
Yes.
And my gut reaction is that that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I think Americans, I mean, that kind of makes me think we're positive people. We want to focus on the good. We want to build someone up, and we want to make sure that they're confident. And it gets a bad rap because people will say, well, everyone gets a trophy in America, right? You
Mm.
play you play in a competition as a young kid, and you get a trophy for coming in last place. And that's where it starts to turn a little bad, because we're too positive and we give too much praise to
Mhm.
people. Um, so I think that it's definitely true. That's how it works. But it's all relative, like we've said. So to Brazilians, American feedback is still pretty direct. Whereas, man, if they came to the Netherlands, they would be shocked that the Netherlands is even more direct with their
Right.
feedback than America. The Dutch are, they view bluntness and honesty as a sign of respect.
Mm.
So they would view it as a sign of disrespect if I'm trying to build someone up before I really gave them how I really felt. They just want to know, well, how do you really feel? Tell me your honest take.
I see.
Um, so I struggled a little bit moving here because I was going
Hmm.
the opposite way. I was going from a culture that wasn't as direct with their feedback to a more direct feedback culture, and realized that to get through to some of the Dutch employees, I would have to start with the bad and not
Hmm.
start with the good, because once you start with the good, they tune out the rest. They think, oh, I'm doing great. All right, because that must be how she really feels. She's giving me her
Mm.
honest opinion. Um, so I think for Brazilians who are coming to America, I think there's a little bit of the low context here as well, in that Americans like to give a lot of feedback, and they
Hmm.
like to do it in writing. And so it's just realizing that it's a bit of that over clarifying, making sure we're on the same page type of culture. and not to be worried if they're getting a lot of feedback, because that's valued in America. The more feedback, the more direct feedback you get, the better employee you can become, you know?
Right. Yeah. In Brazil, I feel, yeah, it's not as direct, I would say. You need to really learn how to read between the lines, what they are saying. What do I need to learn from that? What is he or she not liking it from my
Mm. Is
performance? I need to figure it out. It's basically that.
that hard? Is
Uh,
that hard to do?
it's
Or
super hard. It's super hard to do. Yeah, definitely. Because I think it's a lot about culture, really. Because you tend to take a little bit personal, like if somebody come to you and say, hey, you're bad at this or that, you're like, oh, do you think I'm a bad person? It's like that. um
uh,
yeah, so I think it comes a lot from this. So yeah, I remember, like, of course I had some negative feedbacks in Brazil, but it was very carefully, like, put, right. It wasn't something as direct or as explicit as, writing exactly what you need to know. No, it was definitely something I needed to read between the lines and understand what I needed to do because they were not happy.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, so it's definitely a difference. And coming to America, I think it's still valid, that point that you're saying, and the point that the book talks about too, that a French came to America, heard the three good things from the beginning of the meeting, and thought, yeah, I'm doing great. And I think this would be something that I can definitely see some Brazilians falling to as well. Like if you're not aware that, yeah, like, hey, listen to the whole thing and try to capture what exactly is important, and maybe it's not the first three good things, right? Like, listen to the rest. And also my take, it's I think it's positive a lot, because when you try hard to give three good feedbacks, you're really thinking through, right? Like, you're really not just biased because you don't like the performance of the person, and you really need to think hard and say, all right, what were the positives, right, that this person gave, provided to the project or something, right? Makes you think hard, and makes you think, you value, like, the work that they were doing. And I think that's positive for sure. It's kind of a mixed feelings. It's hard to define.
yeah. On the point of, in Brazil, if someone gives you negative feedback, you take it hard. People might take it a little hard. They might feel like, oh, do you think I'm a bad person? Right? When you get that feedback,
Hmm.
that just comes back to what we were saying about how American culture will separate work and personal. And
Yes.
so, if anything, in America, if you do get negative feedback, don't take it like you're a bad person, because, well, odds are
Yeah.
they don't know you as a person. I shouldn't say that, but odds are they haven't gotten to know you as a person, and they are strictly, they're strictly giving you work related feedback, because
Yeah.
Americans are prioritize, making getting the job done. So yeah,
Yeah.
at least you can hopefully not take it as
Yeah. But it is exactly that. Yeah. I remember when I came here first time, and a friend of mine was telling me that he had, like, feedback session, and the guy was so, like, oh, he was so direct. You remember what I said, that it comes
Mhm.
as being direct. He was like, oh, the guy was so direct, but then, like, 30 minutes later we had the happy hour and we were laughing and stuff. So yeah, it's different for sure.
Mhm.
Different.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about leadership, leading styles. So, egalitarian versus hierarchical. I don't know if I'm saying those words correctly, but in Brazil, I think workplaces are very hierarchical, right? Like, there's the hierarchy. Like, if you're my boss, like, there's a clear authority and it's really followed. And I would say in America, yes, still there is a little bit of that, but it's more like one big group. Like, it's a little bit more informal at the workplace, I would say. It's hard because it's not informal, but it's not that formal, I would say, in terms of hierarchy. Like, for example, in Brazil, sometimes I would say most of the, maybe not nowadays, but most of the companies, it was a little bit weird if you just joined the company and you go to to the boss room and knock the door and say, "Hey, I'm going to introduce myself." But here in America, I remember when I came, my first experience was the partner came to me and talked to me. Like was more like, "Hey, it's all one big group."
Hmm.
Um, how would you describe this? Like, is that the way I'm describing? Is a little bit different. What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah. It does, the way you're describing it makes it sound quite different, and
Hmm.
also the fact that we call our coworkers by their first name, by their our bosses
Yes.
by our first
Yeah.
name. It just levels the playing field a little bit. I mean, that's my take on it. And again, this is an American perspective, right? So
Right.
someone who grew up in this, I it, I kind of like that because it makes me feel like someday I can be you. Oh, you're
Hmm.
talking to me? You're not way up there on the hierarchy.
Hmm.
You're not someone who is, God. No, like I can,
Right.
if you're coming to talk to me, then all right, we're all kind of in this together, and I can almost see myself in you, as opposed to someone who is this figurehead who's respected and esteemed and almost kind of untouchable in a way.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so that's part of it. But then the part that I find so interesting that she talks about in the book, is that in American type cultures, so egalitarian, where the boss is kind of one of the team, someone on the team, they the people on the ground, so lower level people, look to their boss and think, well, if my leader doesn't ask me to do it myself, if they don't empower me to do something myself and say, oh, you figure it out, how will I ever learn how to do it?
Hmm.
Contrasted to the hierarchy cultures like Brazil, like a lot of Asian cultures,
Yeah.
where the same people will look to their leader and say, well, if my leader doesn't show me how to do it, how am I ever going to learn? So
Yeah.
I mean, you've got two completely opposite viewpoints. In one hand, you want to be thrown into the fire and figure it out yourself, and on the other hand, well, no, I need to be shown how to do this. My leader is the one who's smart and knows how to do it. And that's, I think, the difference that Brazilian culture, and American culture are up against a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. And I think it's definitely an evolving thing, and things are evolving so fast. Right. And I feel like when I started my career many years ago, and now in Brazil, it's totally different. In America, I would say in the 10 years that I'm here, it became a little bit different too. Those relationships, right? Those things. One thing that shocked me though in the US was not only calling by the first name, but calling by the nickname.
Oh,
Like, yeah, that's definitely something in Brazil. In Brazil, we call by the first name. That's common. But still in a respectful way. Like, for example, calling somebody like a boss by their nickname would be very weird. Like, for example, if I don't know, I'm Renato, but I go by Hey, like my mom called me Hey, that would be very weird if somebody that, is responding to me calling me this way. That would sound like disrespectful, or it sound like, hey, who you think you are, something like that. And in here, I remember seeing like the first client I went to. I think his name was William, but his nickname was Guy or something like that. Was very different than William, and everybody like talking to him in this way. Even his signature, that was definitely something different for me, um, for
yeah.
sure. On the other hand, the way that Americans make decisions, it sounds
Mhm.
a little bit different too, like top down versus consensus. How would you describe that Americans usually make decisions?
Yeah, that's what's really interesting about this, is that while America is more democracy style, everyone has a say. You can go to your boss. You can walk into their office. Bypass levels. Decisions are typically made by more senior people, and
Yeah.
so it's a little bit of a imbalance, or a opposite there. It's like you would think that decisions would be collective and that
Hmm.
everyone would have a say, which, funny enough, in the Netherlands is very much the case. But in America, people still tend to lean toward seniority. So if you I think if you're sitting in a meeting room or you're, with a couple of Americans and one is more senior than the other, odds are as soon as the more senior one starts to make a decision about something, the other one will back off and say, okay, they
Yeah.
made the call. So
Yeah. 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 It is exactly like that. And I remember I was very confused about it in the beginning because it was like, yeah, all right, that's great. Like the partner came to the room, he was talking about a specific test that a partner in Brazil would never talk about. And I was like, this is really simple. Like I would never see a partner in Brazil talking about it. And he was there in the team, and yeah, the senior was talking, the associate was talking, but then as the moment the partner started talking and kind of leaning towards the decision, yeah, he was like, all right, like we know what to do. So
which is
it's almost like conflicting, right? It's weird.
it's weird. You just described, yeah, exactly it. Like the fact that the partner was in the room, or the leader was in the room in the first place, shows that it's egalitarian. Everyone's in the room, and
Yeah.
they're still consulted. But then as soon as he or she makes that call, you back off. So
Yeah. 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 Yeah, exactly. Now, my favorite thing that I talk a lot in my channels is about trust, right? Because I think
mm,
one important thing, if you're coming to a country and you're gonna find a job in a corporation, you need to learn how to gain the trust of people, right? Like people, if you wanna go and be successful, you want your bosses to trust you, right? Like that you're a good worker, they're doing a good job. And this can be different in different countries, right? Like I think in Brazil, the way you gain trust, you gotta go through certain things. Of course, if you're a foreigner, I think there's some acceptance to you not doing certain things, right? But uh, um, I think the expectations are there anyway. And I think in Brazil versus America, it is very different the way relationships are built and trust relationships are built. Can you talk a little bit about it, like what we learned about that in the US, how trust is built in the corporations versus in Brazil?
yeah, I'll start with America, and then I want you to
Sure.
contrast it with Brazil after. Okay.
Yes.
So American culture is hands down a task-based trust building societies instead of a
Right.
relationship based. And we kind of already touched on this with Americans being a bit cold. And I think in a work setting, this is where this comes through, because they might come across as someone who doesn't want to get to know you as a person. They are focused on the job. Can this person get the job done? Um,
Right.
and so Americans are very much, okay, you do good work, that means you're reliable, that means that I enjoy working with you, that means that I trust you. And that's how trust is built.
Yes.
And I mean, that's the fact, right? Now you want my take on it?
Yeah, your take on it. I would love that.
um, well, it's interesting for me because I grew up in an American work culture, but then I moved out of the American work culture.
Right.
And the Netherlands, I want to say, is um, a little bit more on the relationship side, but
Is
not
it?
fully. It's not, yeah, just by a bit. I'm looking at the scale right now.
Mm,
Um, but I feel it a little bit just in that people are more willing to open up in a work setting, so they're less
mhm,
focused on getting the job done. But
mhm.
I think what this can do is this is where Americans come across cold, and it can dehumanize you a little bit in the workplace and make you
Yeah.
feel like you're just the machine, and anyone can replace anyone who can do the job, anyone who can do your job can replace you.
Hmm.
And I don't like that. And I've I'm haven't worked in America in 4 years, but yeah, I find that I wish there was a better balance. I wish Americans would open up a little bit more and not be so focused on this task based. Um,
Right.
but at the same time, I do value hard work, and I think Americans value hard work.
Hmm.
And when I work with Americans now living abroad, I do feel this sense of, generally speaking, not every case, but generally speaking, they will get the job done well because I know that's how they build trust, and they're task-based people, and their priorities are, can we do the job? Can we do it well? Can we do it fast? Not,
Hmm.
oh, who's Taylor? Can we catch up sometime? And so
Right.
if I want to get the job I think Americans, I trust them to do it. Not
Hmm.
all Americans, but you know what I'm trying to say. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
the view here. But I don't like how it dehumanizes you in the workplace. And
Yes.
it actually, and take it one step further, it's made me feel like I can't be myself at work sometimes in an American setting,
Yeah.
because if it clashes with the stereotypical good worker who will get the job done, then it's not welcome. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely felt this way many times. Like, I had many ups and downs in my career here in the US, especially. And in the beginning, it was really a struggle to understand like what is valued, what's different, and really like a learning curve, right? Um, for many reasons, not just like the culture, but like the work was really hard for me at first, for the first 6 months, and working really hard to understand what was important for my bosses, what was important to show them, to prove them. I felt I needed to be a different person, basically. Yeah, I felt I needed to be like, yeah, like this Renato here that was good, valued in Brazil. I need to be a little bit different here. I needed to, I don't know, I needed to work more focused, less chit chat at work, more like results, 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 more like getting things done fast, good quality. Um, prioritize that, showing that I'm prioritizing that.
yeah.
It was very different than what I was, a little bit. So I definitely understand what you're saying. Sometimes like you feel you should not be you. Like it's a little bit different. But on the other hand, there's some goods on that, right? Like I think I definitely feel that that's a con, but there was definitely good things about it, like to learn how to be more focused, to learn how to produce more, to learn how to do those things. I think those are definitely benefits. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, it's quite interesting. I would say in Brazil, it's not that we don't value, right, like getting things done and stuff, but and I think a caveat that is important to say is that those things are evolving for sure. I think like when I started my career was one thing, now it's totally different in Brazil, even here in the US. And I think it's evolving to be a little bit more balanced. When I started, for sure, it was definitely like relationship based. You could tell many people that were not like the ones who delivered the work. They were more there for, how did he get there? Like a lot of people would question that, and it was definitely based on relationships and things like that. So,
Hmm.
but I feel those things are changing for sure. There and in here, and it's getting more balanced. And I think that what causes that is definitely people moving to Brazil, Brazilian people moving, and this globalization, right? Like many people moving around and mixing all those things. And I think in 100 years from now, it's gonna be like how maybe a one thing, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but
It was.
I think the most important is understanding that, right? I think understanding how how it's ingrained in the American culture. This that trusted is built based on task, right? Like task based relationship. I think that's important to understand because that basically guides you through the whole process. So, for example, when you're building your resume to apply for a job, it should be something really based on what you delivered. What were your results? How is do you have a strong work ethic, right? Like all those things are important, not only on the resume, but on the interviews too. So it's definitely different, right? And it guides you. So understanding that it's really important in my point of view.
Oh, yeah. I think you can approach meetings or relationships with your coworkers knowing that in advance, and
Hmm.
knowing that, when you start a meeting, start with what you got done, start with the work related items, and then maybe at the end, uh,
Yeah,
ask some personal, don't start in the reverse, because
right,
that will show that you are staying up to date, you're getting your work done, and you're communicating that to your American coworker.
right.
Um, so I think you're right. Just knowing that will help you be better. Hmm.
For sure, for sure. And as we're talking about it, people who are listening to us, right? Maybe some of them maybe are seeing or listening to a podcast within America for the first time. This may surprise them a lot because they can see you're very friendly or very warm. And what would you say? What would you tell them, Brazilians who are coming to the US and who fear the American workplace, that they will feel like emotionally disconnected? What would you tell them?
I would I would tell them first to as we're doing now, understanding the American culture and how it works. Like
Mhm.
educate yourself, and
Right.
so you're not going into these meetings wondering, how the culture typically operates. What are the accepted behaviors? So number
Right.
one, just listening to this, maybe reading the culture map. Had
Yeah.
to put and just knowing that you're gonna when you start a new job in America, your first goal is to really learn how to do your job, try to do it well, and show you're working hard. Even if you're not doing it well in the beginning, showing
Yeah.
your team that you're really trying and working hard, that will go
Yeah.
a long way. Um,
Yes.
and then in terms of just, yeah, being afraid that American work culture is cold, I think just know that it might come across as being cold, but it's not personal. It's not.
Mhm.
It's just generally how people operate in the workplace, and I would say that most Americans try to keep work and personal separate. Maybe that's changing a little with the new younger generation, but the older
Yeah,
generation, hands down, they keep work and personal separate.
for sure.
Um, so they're not going to ask you questions. They're not, but don't take that personally. Maybe, like you were saying earlier, to try to ask them questions first, in a non-work setting, and then start to get to know them. Um, it's funny. I'll say one more thing. I'm watching this American sitcom called New Girl. Have you heard of it?
Mm, no,
No. Okay.
no.
It's kind of an older. It was in
Oh, with the Chanel. What's her name?
yes, Zoe
Yes. Yeah.
Zoe
Yeah.
Deschanel.
Zoe. Zoe. Yes.
Yeah,
But I never seen it. But yeah, I know what you're talking about.
yeah, so she's the lead character. She's the new girl, and
Right.
she's a math teacher, or no, a elementary school teacher in her job
Mm.
show. And I think of this book all the time when I see American sitcoms or things playing out on screen. In one
Yes.
of one of the interactions, she's sitting down with her principal, and she's not something went wrong in the classroom with her students, and she's stressed, and there's stuff going on in her personal life, and she sits down in the principal's office and she starts to tell him what's going on in her personal life, and he just cuts her off. He's like, no, that's too much information. I don't need to know that. You can't bring that into the workplace. You have to keep that out of the workplace. And it wasn't even bad stuff. Like, it was just,
Right.
something with her roommate in her apartment.
Right.
So it just shows that's very standard for the American culture, is you don't
Yeah.
really bring it in at first. So if you
Yeah.
bring it in, slowly bring it in. Don't come on too
Yes.
hard, I guess, because
Yes.
Americans will feel that at the start. So
Yes, 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 for sure. It's funny to hear you say a lot of memories coming to my mind, like what you just said. Yeah, I see examples of the culture map everywhere now because of you, because you introduced me to this book. Like
it's
I
just
see
that.
that many places, like yeah, shows and everyday things. It's very funny, and it's nice. It's nice to understand better. I think I always had this passion about understanding people. I think that's something I'm learning about myself, that I like to understand people and what they're thinking and how they do things, why they do things, the things that they do. And this book gave me a lot of clarity, so that's why I loved it.
Mhm.
You talked a little bit about do's and don'ts. Like, do you think there's any other like for example don'ts that we should never do, like as a Brazilian in the American in an American company?
um Trying to look here. uh Don'ts. I mean, nothing comes to mind
Mm-hmm.
immediately on things that you don't do, because it just depends on the job. It depends on the context. What do we what kind of setting are we in?
Right,
Um,
right. Yeah, thinking about it, I think
what do you
Brazilians
think?
do a lot. It's like, for example, prioritizing how things look like. For example, oh, if everybody gets to work at 9, I should get to work around 9. If everybody leaves like at 6 or no earlier than 7, I should never leave earlier than 7. And my first few experiences in the US was like my boss leaving before everybody else because he had something, or like on Fridays he would do that time. And it was, for me, was a little bit shocking. It was like, what was he doing, um which shows to me it's more like, yeah, that's what matters a lot, is like getting the work done, and this is not as important. So like I think in Brazil there's a lot of this, like how you be perceived, and that's something that is good to have in mind. Like
Mm,
another example, like Brazilians like a lot to have, small talk sometimes, like have a coffee. We say vamos tomar um cafezinho, like have a coffee, like, and that's an opportunity to have a chat and talk about random stuff. We do that a lot, and I think it's doing this less because this definitely can be perceived as something, hey, where the work is getting done, when
mhm.
you're talking like every day for like 15 minutes in the afternoon, and another 15 minutes in the morning, or even more, or having lunches of like 2 hours, things like that. So I
Okay.
think that would definitely be a don't, thinking, putting in perspective, right? Brazilian versus US. Those are definitely the things that I can think of. Um, but yeah, other than that, what you said, right? Like what you said about, if you're sharing about your stuff, don't go too fast, right? Slow down, little by little. And it's not that you're never gonna break the ice or never get, to know people personally. You can, but sometimes it takes more time, right? Definitely, for sure.
Yeah, Renato, I would echo what you said
Hmm.
um, about the not not taking as many breaks, or just no being aware that people are watching and that it is
Yeah.
how it looks, and
Yeah.
especially in the beginning of a new job,
Hmm.
you do, and if you're taking a lot of breaks, or the other thing is, this is more of a tip, but it could be turned into a don't do this as well. But if you need flexibility for a day, if you need to take a half a day, if you need to leave early, um, when you communicate that in an American workplace, ask for it, but say that you've thought about it in advance and you've already planned to finish the work by this day, or so and
Hmm.
so is going to take over and help finish it, and it just shows that, because that's the next question that they're going to ask is, well, what about the work, and
Right.
uh,
Yeah.
and so if you're proactive in that by saying, okay, well, I'm asking for something, but don't worry, I'm still going to get it done, because
Yeah.
that helps. Whereas it's funny here in the Netherlands, uh, it's just very much, no, you have something personal, you take off, we'll figure it out. Like, you go, figure
Mm.
it out. And so
Mm.
in America, I think it's a little more, well, that was assigned to you. How are you going to get it done? I don't,
Yeah.
And
Have you
so,
thought about it? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's definitely a more an American thing. I don't know if I'm mixing things, but
Hmm.
yeah, I think the last 10 years, one thing I learned for sure was that to be proactive with um the solution, right? Like if you have a
Yeah.
problem and you're gonna discuss with your boss, bring what would you do, right? Like what is the
Yes.
solution you propose? And I think I don't remember if that's something I learned in Brazil. I think maybe, but maybe not. Maybe it was an American thing, for sure.
That is the egalitarian hierarchy
Mm,
example, because Americans, egalitarian, will want you to come with a solution. Will throw you into the fire. So a leader will say, "Well, how are you going to do this?" As opposed to, "Okay, I'll show you how I'm going to do this." So
yes,
it just it
yes,
yeah, it tracks with what we're where that sits where it sits.
yes. No, for sure, for sure. Yeah, definitely something then that, even if I learned in Brazil, that's definitely something that got more space here in the US for me, and something like that I apply with my kids, for example, like when they come with the problem and say,
Yeah.
all right, have you thought about the solution?
Yep. Can can I ask you one clarifying question? At the beginning,
Sure.
you said in Brazil it was how it looks, so you would not leave until everyone else had left,
Yeah.
or versus America where you said your boss would leave early if they had to. That was your experience?
Yeah, I feel like for certain things the appearances were important. So like it was important to show that you were there together with the team until the end, and not like, for example, it would be very weird in a Brazil environment, like in an office, people that come really early, like 6 o'clock, and leave at 3. That would be kind of an exception of an exception, right? Or you would need to prove really well that, hey, I'm doing this, I got this exception because I have a great relationship with someone or whatever, or because I deliver, right? In the US, I feel this is not as important. I'm not saying it's not, but it's not as important as long as you're delivering the results, right?
Mm,
Because for me, seeing that, like the manager leaving, the partner stayed, the manager left, for me that show like, yeah, the partner have his trust. Like the partner trusts this guy because he probably delivers really well, and he did. Yeah, that manager was really fucking crazy good. Um, so that was a shock for me a little bit, you know.
yeah.
So I think it's hard to define, but I feel appearances counts for certain things where in the US it wouldn't count, and vice versa. Uh, which is why it's hard to define, like what to do and what to not do.
Yeah, I do think seniority plays a role in that just because
Yeah.
early in my career, I felt that I could not leave until everyone left here.
Mm,
Like it was very much how it looked in the corporate workplace. And then moving to
mhm.
the Netherlands, it was the opposite. It was like, okay, you but I get what you're saying in that if people are getting the work done, they can leave. I think that's true, but most of my work experience in the US was how similar to how you described Brazil's, where you would not
Mm,
until that last person left. You would sit there,
okay.
even if you were done with your work. But it could be varying. Of course, it's
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's fair enough. Because yeah, I can remember some other teams where this would not be seen as good. For sure. What's one thing you love about American culture at work?
one thing I love about American culture at work.
Yeah.
Um, I think just the fact that people work hard.
Hmm.
And I know that's not unique to America. It's people work hard all over the world, but I guess just this pride that Americans have in their work.
Yeah.
It
It's
because it
called
can.
work ethic, right? It's
Yes.
like, yeah, if you translate to, if you just translate without thinking about what that means, but just translating the words like ethic, it's kind of weird, you know. I don't know,
Mhm.
like at least for Brazilians, at least for me as a Brazilian, when I translated that without knowing what that was weird. What do you mean work ethic? Like, is that
Mm.
showing up with, manners, or? And then I learned it's working hard, right?
It
Yeah.
is. It's just it's when you are doing something and you see that there's a short way and a long way to do it. You can take the shortcut or you can do it the right way. It's doing it the right way, and
Yeah.
and I think Americans they take a lot of pride in their work. Sometimes too much pride, and work becomes their life, and then
Yeah.
the balance between work and life gets skewed in the wrong direction. And
Yeah.
so what I'm on a journey of is still working hard, but not letting it control my life, and
Mm.
not letting my success at work define how successful I am as a person.
Is
Because
that is that something you learned in the Netherlands? Is that something that changed your perspective?
yes.
Okay. Yeah. Like, for example, you take vacations.
For example, I don't feel bad about asking for vacations here.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
America, I felt bad asking for
Yeah.
vacations. I would, it would make me nervous. I would get like sweaty
Yeah.
palms. I would like not look forward to the conversation of saying, "Can I take these 2 weeks off?" Whereas here, you take a summer holiday, people are taking 4 or 5 weeks off at one time, and it's
Yeah.
normal. And
Yeah.
and people don't work. You know, they're out of office. They're out of office. It's just, I guess they just, people don't tie their success as a person in life and their overall happiness to their salary and their bonus and
Yeah.
rating like they like I was used to in my job, and not saying all jobs, but in my job it was. And so,
Yeah.
you know, I I'm afraid of going back to the American work culture. If I'm honest, I don't want to do it.
You have anxiety about it if you need to come back.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah. No, definitely. I'm asking that because that's definitely something I see. I see Americans, they are nervous to take vacation. Like they don't take more than a week. Like if they take more than a week,
yeah.
they feel like, I don't know, they feel bad. They feel like it's not well seen or something.
It's
And in
yeah.
Brazil, like minimum is like 2 weeks. That's the minimum there, and I think there's a little bit of being protected by the law. There's a little bit of that, like the law kind of requires you to take vacation, so that plays its part. But I think if even if the law was not saying that, Brazilians would be more okay, more close towards the Netherlands, where yeah, it's like, hey, it's my life, I need my vacation, I need to do my trips and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
um
It's, I think Americans, at least, yeah, not everyone, but I think they tend to put a lot of pressure on themselves,
yeah,
and feel like if they're not getting the job done, then they don't deserve to take vacation. Or, you know,
mm,
it's hard to even describe. It's just something
yeah,
that's just innately influenced. Like I'm influenced by what I grew up in, and it's just like that's what you do. You just get up and you
yeah,
go, and that is the most important thing. And you work hard, and you, even when you're not feeling good, you show up. You know, you don't call in
yeah,
sick, and you don't you don't, even when you
yeah,
don't want to do it, you do it. And it's just
yeah.
it's become the other extreme, unfortunately. So
Yeah, yeah. I think it's definitely because it's conflicting a little bit, right? Because yeah, taking vacation is not getting things done, and it's the opposite. So I think that's why a little bit it's hard, right, for Americans to do that.
do you know
Any
that
Go
oh
ahead. Sorry.
do you know that old, there's this fable, this old story that demonstrates this point. Um, I'll send you the longer version, but the
Okay.
shortened version, because it's worth a read. It's not super long, but the
Okay.
shortened version is there's this fisher in Mexico who fishes every day, goes out, catches a few fish, goes home, cooks the fish, eats it with his family, and does this every day. And this American guy comes over, meets him, and says, "Oh, what do you do?" And the fisherman says, "Oh, I do this. I go out every day. I get to catch some fish, and then I go and spend time with my family at home." And then the American guy goes, "Well, you know, you could capitalize on this business. You could grow your business. You could hire fishermen. You could hire fishing boats. You could make some good money off this, and then you could go public by this. You could get some stockholders, and you can, you know, really grow." And then the fisherman's like, "Oh yeah, okay." And you know, why would I do this? And the American goes, "Well, you do this because once you do all that, then you can go home to your wife and spend time with your kids and fish all day." And and it basically he's this American said you should work your whole life to get to this point where you can do exactly what you're doing right
What
now.
you're
He's
doing
like,
right now?
but
Yeah.
isn't that what I'm doing right now? You know, and that's sometimes this philosophy that Americans have is let's work, let's grind ourselves to the bone just so we
Yeah.
can get to this retirement instead of finding a balanced life throughout our life, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. And that's why I think this is this is changing. I don't know, because a lot of influencers that I hear, they are like entrepreneurs, right? And they claim that, yeah, work hard, but on the other hand, like, I don't know, having a work that you love, like doing something that really, something that doesn't feel like work. So I feel it's like it's mixing, it's evolving.
Hmm.
Yeah. Anyways,
Yeah. Mm.
that's a hard conversation because it's hard to define the things, right? Like, have clear examples, because sometimes they mix and they things are evolving. It's complicated. It's people, right? Talking about people and how they think, it's complicated.
I think what I've been hearing is that the newer generation of people starting
Hmm.
at the accounting firms are the exact opposite. They are looking at their boss and saying, "I'm out. I'm leaving. I've got a gym
Mm,
class or I've got a concert," and they're gone. And now the
yeah.
opposite problem is where they have to kind of put their foot down and say, "No, you need to finish this, or you need to have a plan to finish this." So I
Hmm.
think there is a lot of change, and it would be interesting to understand what the newer generation is thinking
Yeah.
and how they're thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Any final tips or words of encouragement for Brazilians preparing to move and work in the US?
Um, hmm. I think we covered a lot, and
Yeah, we did.
I would say I would say uh, go to the big grocery stores and try to stay away from the snack food, because America is they are king of the snack food, and it's
Yeah.
just impossible to not eat bad in America. And the fast food and the Uber
Yeah.
Eats, you can get things delivered now. Um,
Yeah.
I would say that that's another thing that America is known for. So watch out for that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. You go to the AO, like, the snacks AO, like there's like a specific cookie, and there's so many different brands with the same cookie.
Yeah.
Which is, it's just different. It's like just too much on your face, and you're driving anywhere, there's fast food anywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure.
You have so many options, too many
So many
options,
options,
you
too many
know?
options. Yeah.
It's
Yeah, too many options.
but it's also kind of nice. It's kind of a luxury because I miss that now. I
Do you
wish I.
miss that?
Oh my God, yeah, yeah. If I
Yeah.
yeah, I wish I had a big grocery store here. Now there's like two different kinds of salsa I can get, or there like it's just so much more limited. So, um,
Yeah.
but uh, but yeah, maybe just give Americans a chance too, because we can sit here and we can talk about what the American culture is like, but there's so it like uh, people will be different based on their life
Oh,
experiences, you know.
definitely. Definitely,
So
definitely, definitely. For sure. For
that's
sure. For
important.
sure. I think it's important to say that, yeah, every country, every place, there's gonna be like, I don't know. I don't wanna put a name, but there's bad people and nice people
Yeah.
everywhere. And it's like, give them a chance. I think, yeah, most people that I met, at work, I know I'm in a bubble a little bit, but most people that I met at work, they're super nice. They're always like open to
Hmm.
talk and have conversations, especially outside of work, like when we go to happy hours and when we're working, like, for example, when we were in the UK, we had dinners and stuff. It was always so nice, to chat
Hmm.
about random stuff. You always so insightful about the things that we're talking. This time you guys came to Tampa, I met you, and the other guys was so nice. I was missing that a little bit because I'm not in the team anymore, so I was missing a lot. It was really good. Have you
Yeah.
worked with other Brazilians, or we didn't work a lot, right? Like, we just were part of the same group, but we didn't work together in the same project. But have you worked with other Brazilians, or I'm the only one?
I worked with Amanda on our team.
Oh yeah, yes,
But
yes, yes. She's also Brazilian. Yeah.
so
Uh,
just you guys, yeah.
okay. What have you learned about Brazilians from working with me and with Amanda?
I mean, the thing that comes to mind is just you. I'm more likely to have a real conversation with a Brazilian than I am American. An American. And what I mean by
I
that is
agree.
just we. you're not afraid to be a human, be a person, and have a
Yeah.
conversation like a person would. And with Americans, it's all show until you kind of crack into them and you get them to
Yes.
realize that you're not out to get them. It's not a competition. I'm just trying to
Yes.
talk to you.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
think
Yes.
that
Yes.
that's what
Yes.
I would say, Renato, which is a really, really good quality about you and about Brazilian culture if that resonates with Brazilian culture. So
No, it is. I'm sure everybody who is watching us, they are smiling as well. Because yeah, I think we're a little bit proud of that. Um, yeah, we're us. I think. And yeah, once you crack, I would say crack this wall with Americans. Yeah, it's so nice to get to know them a little bit better, deeper. Um, yeah, yeah, it's so
mhm.
nice.
I think
Thank you, Taylor.
you're welcome. One last thing too, I'd just say that a lot of Americans, well, the stereotype is that Americans don't leave America, right? Is that a lot
Yeah,
of them believe America is the best place in the world. And
they don't even have a passport
my
sometimes. Yeah,
my dad just got his passport and he is 60 years old, Renato. 60 years old. I
yeah,
forced him to. I filled out the
right.
paperwork and I gave it to him as a Christmas present. Um, but in his case, he just has his life, he just doesn't, which is still crazy to me, but he just doesn't have an interest really in traveling
Yeah,
and he likes what
yeah,
he likes. And as long as you're not, judgmental or unopen as a person to other cultures, which he's not, then I don't, there's nothing wrong with that. Um, but just know that, yeah, you might be, don't be surprised if you meet Americans who haven't left America. And, I wish that all Americans could have the chance to go abroad because I think it changes you as a person and
for
makes you
sure,
realize that there's not one way of doing things in life.
for
There's
sure.
so many good ways of doing things. So, if anything, if you're
Yeah,
moving to America, you are
yeah,
becoming, a better person for it and
for
can learn
sure,
from people around you. So,
for sure. Definitely from the whole team. From the whole team, all the Americans. You were definitely the most Brazilian of all of them.
really?
Yeah, yeah, because and definitely because you had that experience outside of US, right?
Yeah.
Um, Even though he wasn't going to Brazil or a Latin country or anything like that, but still, like this, open up your mind, right? Like
Yeah.
how things are different, can be different. That made you, and definitely because of your personality too, and all that. um, the fact that you brought this book shows that you have an interest to understanding those differences and understanding diversity, inclusion, all that. So I think definitely that counts. But yeah, you going to other country also gave you this, I would say, advantage to be more close to, I would say, more towards what a Brazilian would be, um, compared to the other Americas that we work together there,
Oh.
for sure.
Oh.
And that's a compliment, okay?
That's good to hear. Thank you.
All right.
I
Well,
try.
Taylor, thank you so much. I love this conversation. It was really good, really nice. As always, a pleasure to talk to you. Always with great insights and always like a deep conversation about whatever topic we're talking. So, really nice. Thank you for accepting the invite. And I really think this is going to help a lot of Brazilians that are coming to the US. They're planning to come to the US and understanding a little bit more about Americans from an American. I think my podcast is a lot about bringing other voices to share their opinions about things, and I think definitely this is a special episode where I'm bringing an American to talk about American culture. So really, thank you.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad we could talk. I loved it. Thanks, Renato.
All right, amazing. Guys, if you have any comments for Taylor, any questions, just put on the comments. And I see you on the next episode. Thank you.